This episode is sponsored by M3 Virtual Accounting. Don't forget, if you are looking for somebody who can help you deal with all of the finances related to an online business or even your personal finances, if you find yourself dreading the tax time that's coming up, go and talk to Molly. She's the one who is helping me, and her help has just been invaluable. M3virtualaccounting.com is where you go to schedule a completely free consult, and Molly will talk with you about what you're looking for and whether she can help you. And let her know that I sent you. M3virtualaccounting.com.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, A Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host Switcheroo, the rereading, etc., covering A Dance with Dragons, chapters 24 and 25, The Lost Lord and the Windblown. In these chapters, we get our first POV with Jon Connington, and he's just about as cranky as he seems to be. There's not a lot of, goodwill tempering his personality on the inside. And then we find out that the Windblown, our guy is now named Frog. Feels really undignified. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
All right, so Jon Connington's POV. What did you think about the vibe of this guy?
This guy, am I right?
Am I right?
This guy is an interesting guy. He first of all is under the impression that Tyrion has skedaddled.
Yes.
Of his own, because he was never to be trusted in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Which feels a little, well, we find out later on too through his chapter that he's had enough of Illyrio, so Illyrio vouching and Varys vouching for Tyrion actually didn't do him any favors.
Yeah, there's a whole thing later on where we find out that, like, apparently Illyrio and Varys' plans have changed a bunch of times.
Right, like, yeah.
So everybody is just kind of like, I don't know, fuck these guys though, right? Like, yeah.
And it was like alluded to in the show that Viserys was maybe the first person that they were supporting, but the show leaned so heavily into Daenerys so quickly that you almost it feels like Viserys is just talking about how he's going to be king again, like he's just lost his mind and he's delusional. And this was a good reminder that no, they had been telling him that for all those years.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
So it's funny when we were talking about Aegon and how he was behaving, and we were talking like Tyrion is thinking about Joffrey, and I hadn't thought about it at the time, but it's given a little Viserys as well.
Oh, yeah.
And
God, I hadn't thought of that either, which is a weird thing to not think about, considering he's meant to look very much like Viserys. Right.
But it has had a sort of similar time in exile. Now, granted, Viserys had some other shit going on with cruelty and just all around shittiness that I'm not saying that Aegon has demonstrated at all, but just the seeds, Yeah. And if you wonder, like, what a man who's raised to believe that they are a prince or a king and their birthright's been stolen from them and that they need to get it back, like, yeah, this is kind of what they're going to turn into, isn't it?
Yeah. There's another series that there's a character that's sort of raised with this mythology, for lack of a better word, where his family was like, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm sorry, you guys, you know what the cause is. I'm not even going to get into it. Just bear with me. But it's been a really rainy day, so I haven't been able to, like, it's pouring, so it's not like I could just walk him,
Right.
and no the dog park, and so he is stir crazy and extremely cranky.
Aw.
Which so am I, so you know what?
Yeah.
We're quite a pair. But the way that he grows up with this chip on his shoulder from having been simultaneously, he was robbed of something that belongs to him, and that's just like his birthright, but then of course also his family that he was robbed of, and this dwelling on revenge and taking back, and the way that that sort of twisted his whole outlook, so that eventually when he becomes a leader, the people that he should be like seeing as brothers in arms are just tools for him to do what he needs to do, and they're not really people anymore. And it was just an interesting thing because, you know, I could see how it could go either way. You could either become somebody like that, or you could become somebody who the hardship has made you appreciate things more and have more compassion because you went through trials and tribulations yourself. And I feel like Daenerys being like off to the side, you know, that's more how she wound up.
Right. I think Daenerys benefited from all the years with her and Viserys, all of the angst of what was lost and what was due belonged to him. So she didn't necessarily have to internalize it for quite so long. And
that's true.
I think that may have saved her a little bit.
That's a good point. Yeah, and she was just sort of along for the ride, but not. It was not about her.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, his vibe, and then this bit too, how he has made this great sacrifice of his reputation in order to participate in this plot, and how he is not a fan of that.
Yes.
He has agreed to it, but he feels like he's owed something for agreeing to that. He's owed a little bit of vengeance, and even says like he's going to make Varys pay for that. Almost as if like because I think Varys is correct, where you know people are going to remember heroes. You know,
I agree,
but Griff feels like he took it personally, like they put that in there and they didn't have to.
Yeah, that's kind of like really the through line with him on a lot of stuff is that he doesn't see anything as simply circumstance. It always feels very like pointed, which is what's sort of funny about later on him saying something like, don't let paranoia get to you because it'll like sour you. I was like, sir, I mean, I appreciate that advice because it's true, but also I would like it if you would internalize that a bit more. It seems like it's a combo too of simply who Varys is and the fact that he was telling him what to do. You know, he's a eunuch and he was a servant, and here he is calling the shots, and the just resentment behind that. Yeah,
the whole thing has got a very, you know, a high lord laid low kind of thing, and there's definitely some kernels of resentment about his station now. But then he tries to like buoy himself by reminding himself what a great thing he's being a part of, and how he is righting, you know, a terrible wrong of history, and also that he is still in service to his, as he calls him, his Silver Prince, which, I mean, I guess.
Well, funny you should mention it, but George R. R. Martin has stated officially that Jon Connington was in love with Rhaegar.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So that's where that's coming from.
Okay. So,
All right. Yeah, and I wonder if that's part of it as well, just like the bitterness at losing somebody that he cared about so much.
I mean, it would definitely fucking track.
Yeah.
What I was looking for in this, and I didn't get it, was any kind of hint about the theories that we talked about whether or not Aegon is really like legit Targaryen.
Yeah.
Or not. And but there was, I mean, there could have been, and I just missed it because that is the way of Rashawn. But
not me though. I catch everything.
But there was nothing that I noticed that made me go, oh yeah, as far as that's concerned.
And I really, want to make sure everybody knows that this is not Austin's fault that we're not getting stuff, because Rashawn and I had to record sooner than usual because she's going on a trip. And so Austin didn't have the time to give us the second set of notes for these chapters. And that's my bad, because we planned ahead that we were recording today and I could have told him, but I forgot. I have grown, a little bit overwhelmed. So if there is something that we miss, I'm sure that he will let us know in the next set of notes.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it's not just stuff we miss. I mean, I hope it's just stuff that, we wouldn't have thought of, because if it's stuff we miss, that could just go on forever.
I'm just going to say it's stuff we missed. I'm resigned to it at this point, we all know what the deal is with us. We're here for the fun.
We're here for the vibes.
Yeah, to bring our delightful humor and our friendship. Yay, friendship. But if you guys are here for the facts and just the facts, probably want to go get a fax machine. Am I right? Oh. Just high five myself.
High five and a million angels.
Exactly. So, all right. So yeah, like you said, he's just waiting for Tyrion and just very much like, this motherfucker bailed.
Yeah.
I should have killed him when I had the chance. And
this is a little while later, actually. He's out here waiting for the Maester to come back.
You're right.
Because, and he's salty because the Maester is who lost, air quotes, Tyrion. And now this guy is running late. And Griff is just like, this motherfucker.
Everybody's doing this just to spite him. It's never just a circumstantial thing. He's always just like, why do you hate me so much?
Right? Why does everybody everywhere go out of their way to do everything the opposite of what I need them to do?
Which, as somebody who has no fucking tolerance for incompetence in, daily life when you have a job to do, please nobody come at me about my incompetence with remembering Song of Ice and Fire stuff. It's not nice. I understand that, immediate spike in blood pressure where you're just like, the fuck? But, sir, you really need to talk yourself down a little bit. You're going to get hypertension. It's not good for you.
I have a low threshold for inconvenience, but I mask very, very well. So it generally doesn't, the other person doesn't know. But inside, I am seething. Just any inconvenience.
You guys do not know. On the show, I just say whatever because I am in my own territory. But Rashawn and I are really similar in this respect. And Owen and I went to a party that was not great. And Owen really thought that I was having a good time. And he himself was not having a good time. And when we left, he was ready to try and put a positive spin on it for my sake. And I was the one, as soon as we got in the car, that was like, what the fuck? And he was like, oh my God, I thought you were having fun. Oh God, I'm so relieved. He just really expected that he was the crank and I was going to be like, that was nice. Everybody was sweet. And I was just like, I wanted to kill them all. So, yeah, I just need Jon Connington to mask, I guess is what we're saying, sir. Sometimes masks are there for a reason. They're, part of politeness. So anyway, what he's here for is to present his fake son to the Golden Company. And it's so funny because he really thinks he's about to make a splash. Yeah. It's a drama-filled moment, and it turns out they know already.
You can use, he thinks.
It's so embarrassing.
So it's funny because this is not the plan, but the plan has blown up because word's gotten out that Daenerys is not going anywhere.
Correct.
Enough time has passed that word's out. She's not heading west like they thought. So
I wish so much that she knew how many people had been poised.
mhm.
Maybe that would change things for her, you know?
Yeah, she's got all these people on the way to, try to sync up with her.
Yep. Gonna
But
have her back.
so and now whether or not they can all be trusted, that is a whole separate conversation. According to Quentyn, not near or one of these what do I want to call them?
Scoundrels.
Can be trusted. But I can't believe that all of them are terrible.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe Quaithy's got there's one or two hiding in there, and she's just mixing them all up. But so instead of waiting or trying to get to her, and also shit's all blocked off, and things are going on, they've decided to present the prince to the Golden Company. And we find out too that Griff, these were his folks.
Yeah.
When he, I guess, when Robert won, and people had to get out of Dodge, he found himself in the Golden Company as just like a soldier and rose up through the ranks pretty high up to become like the second in charge of some guy who is now no longer around.
Right.
And then I want to say, as part of the plan, they had him, Varys and Illyrio had him steal so that he would be sort of run out on the rail, and then people would just think that he like drank himself to death, or whatever. He's like a nobody. He's disgraced. He's completely disgraced now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And these are the people that he is bringing Aegon to as their new liege. And the Golden Company, as you reminded me, have a history. Back in the day, they were low-key Targaryens. They were the Blackfires.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Griff is like, these are your men. Are they?
Yeah.
They maybe were, as he puts it, a sire or grandsire ago.
It's a real, like, that's one of the things that comes up a lot in this series, is people feeling that, like, the precedent for something means that the loyalty is still there. And
the whole universe is predicated on that.
Yeah. And it's just, it's always sort of like, sometimes it is actually true. There's a sense of them having been, like feeling wronged and waiting for their person to return. And then there's times where they're like, we are done with that. That's over.
We
That's
heard
canceled.
y'all was all dead. Mm-hmm. What was we supposed to do? Just
we boarded up,
right? Wait around for your corpses to raise and then rule us? Like,
oh God,
be for real.
But yeah, so he the plan with like stealing and everything, that's the thing that he's really holding against Varys. And it's like, dude, seriously, get over it. Like, how do you not understand the reality of what he was doing there and how true that is? Why do you think that there was something about that he was just gleeful about?
Right.
Like, other than the fact that Varys seems to kind of snicker about everything.
True.
The
only thing I could think is, all right, so you and Varys were both in Aerys court. You were Rhaegar's dude and Varys was a spider, and y'all were all in King's Landing together. Maybe they had some pre-existing beef. Maybe Connington was disrespectful, because it seems like he could be really disrespectful. And maybe Varys took a special pleasure in being like, oh, and by the way, you're going to be a degenerate thief.
You know what? I like that. I'm going to go with it. There's that rings true for me, even though it's completely fabricated.
I know, right?
I'm here for it.
I'm here punching up the story. You're welcome, George Martin.
So here it is. Halden comes along. The half-maester looked hot and bedraggled as he made his way along the waterfront. Sweat had left dark rings beneath the arms of his light linen robes, and he had the same sour look on his face as at Soloris when he returned to the shy maid to confess the dwarf was gone, which that must have been a really bummer trip.
Right.
I didn't really think about the fact that he had to be like,
walk back to
hey.
the fucking ship. Like,
oh my God.
I know you told me to stay by him the whole time, but what had happened was he wanted to fuck a whore, and I was too chaste to go inside and make sure that when he was done, we were together. I decided to go wait in the town square like a fucking ninny.
A chump.
Like a chump.
And he's brought horses, and they're like bad.
Oh,
and Jon is just like, is this really the best you could find? And he's like, no, I could find better, but I just didn't for fun. Yes, they're the best I could fucking find, but you just get on the goddamn horses.
Meanwhile, Lemore is just like, this is a bad idea. What are you doing? This is all. What are you doing?
Maybe the kid should stay here. This feels really dangerous. And he's like, nope, can't do that anymore. He's old enough that he's got to be part of this now. And yeah, Griff is just like, when he says they're your army, he's like, Yolo warned me not to trust anybody. And Griff's like, yeah, I mean, that's not really bad advice, actually. And people will lie about who they are, but you do have to make sure to balance that. And, you can be sort of circumspect about what you share and just once people prove themselves, be generous with them.
I thought that was good advice.
Yeah,
he just tells them, walk in the middle, let people earn your trust. But when they do, like, fucking reward that shit.
I haven't seen Griff rewarding a lot, but
I mean, I
don't know what he's got to reward.
He thinks that by not killing people is a reward.
You know what? You're probably right. Actually, that is what he would think.
He doesn't fucking stab Halden in the neck. Is a reward for
it's
loyalty.
Like that tweet that was like, "I could be a lot meaner than I am," and I think everybody should be more grateful to me for that.
Yes. I fucking retweeted that or reposted it or whatever. And I could not be mean. I mean, I can be mean, but I can't be mean.
Yep.
If that makes any sense.
Oh, it does.
Okay.
Yes.
Glad.
I am so mean. And then instantly my inner self is just like, okay, that was really gross. What the fuck? No, first of all, don't think that. Don't say that for sure.
Yeah.
That's just, which I think is good. I think having that like voice is a good sign.
I do too. But
I wish sometimes I could just be mean.
I have a deep-seated fear of saying things that can never be taken back. So, but like when it comes out, it's not pretty.
I remember as a teenager being really angry at my mother, and I had read somewhere that when you're angry, write a letter and don't send it, and I wrote it fully intending to send it actually, but I didn't. I sat on it and I found it like weeks later and read it and was like, oh my God, this is the most hateful thing I have ever, like, I was so startled at how fucking vicious I was. And was like, I am so glad I didn't fucking send this. Jesus. Yeah. It was really mean.
Yeah, it is. It is not a point of pride for me. Like some people are really like to let people know. You know? And it's not my particular kink, but it is not not a part of my personality that I'm proud of. And I've only had a few times where it's really come out, but yeah, it's no bueno.
I'll inadvertently, because I'm trying to simply be clear, sometimes say something in such a blunt way that it's hurtful, but I'm not somebody who goes out of their way to try and be insulting in an argument the way that some folks are. And it's always been sort of a deal breaker for me. If I was dating and a guy started to pull that kind of thing out, immediately it was just like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And just left
and it should be. And if if I engage in that kind of behavior, people would be right to tell me to go fuck myself. So I also thought we were going to get something about Lemore, and we didn't.
No, we don't. We just get that like Griff has grown fond of her.
Yeah, and that he calls her Lady Lamore instead of Septa Lamore, which I thought was But then there was
she's changed out of her Septa's costume, so
That's
I think that might
true.
be it.
That might be part of the deal, because she did put her regular clothes on, so she didn't stand out.
Yeah,
but all right, maybe that's all that was.
So here comes Halden, and he talks to one of the sergeants to find the captain, and it says when he turned up, he was just as ugly as the last time Griff laid eyes on him. A big-bellied, shambling hulk of a man, the sellsword had a seamed face crisscrossed with old scars. His right ear looked as if a dog had chewed on it, and his left was missing. Have they made you a captain, Flowers? I thought the Golden Company had standards. It's worse than that, you bugger. They knighted me as well. And yeah, this whole thing, and he calls Halden an icy cunt. I don't know why, but icy cunt is very something.
He still has a stick up his ass. And then they try to, they're like looking at Aegon and like, who's this? And he's like, this is my squire. Because Griff is still like, this is a big top secret.
Knowing that they know everything, it's just so like, again, a little cringy as we've got him. Oh yeah, my mother was a washerwoman. Like, okay, yeah. So,
oh wait, the washerwoman thing is Flowers talking.
Oh yes, my bad. You're right. I thought that was part of his like backstory because I don't remember if they give him an actual. Do we ever hear a fake backstory from him? Like who his parents supposedly
for Griff and Aegon?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's Griff is the dad, and then there's some woman that's from some place where they dye their hair blue, and that's why the hair is blue.
Right, but there's no like what happened, or maybe there is.
I think I think she just dies, and now they're on their own, and then they.
It's funny that he's supposed to be his dad though, because from what you hear, they don't look alike at all.
And they do the hair and stuff in remembrance of her and her culture and all that. Yes, I forget where she's supposed to be from, like whether it's Tayoshi or some other,
Taroshi. Yeah, I think it is.
Oh.
And so far as most of them were concerned, Connington had drunk himself to death in Lys after being driven from the company in disgrace for stealing from the war chest. And the drinking himself to death thing was mentioned, I think, in one of Tyrion's chapters way back. That was like when I mentioned that we get like a very brief reference to Jon Connington. Oh. That's all we heard was like, oh, so-and-so had supposedly gone off and drunk himself to death. And that was like the one reference we got. So this, they go and announce him, and this dude, death had robbed him of his ears, his nose, and all his warmth. The smile remained, transformed into a glittering golden grin. All the skulls were grinning, even Bittersteel's on the tall pike in the center. What does he have to grin about? He died defeated and alone, a broken man in an alien land. What does he have to grin about? He's thinking about a skull. This is what I'm talking about. Calm down, sir. Why are you so mad all the time?
This fucking tradition of their fallen leaders of the company having their skulls dipped in gold and then displayed every time they set up a camp. I mean...
I wouldn't be mad about it.
I wasn't either.
If you all, after my death, were like, hey, clean her skull, give it to us to dip in gold, I, for the record, would be straight with that.
And the guy that we had heard about before, his skull is here. That Melee's the monstrous with him and his little brother head is out there too. But then I was just like, I was reading it and I'm like, oh, the Golden Company.
Hey, get it? I'm surprised nobody just runs off with the skulls and sells them. Bet they're worth a lot.
They probably are.
Yeah.
But I guess you don't want all those motherfuckers chasing you, so.
True. I wonder how much one of them weighs, too. Like a whole skull dipped? I feel like that's got to weigh like 40 pounds. This is probably really heavy.
You know, I just saw a chick on Pawn Stars, and she had like a 6-pound gold note, and that shit was worth like $900.
6 pounds?
Wait, not 6 pounds, 6 ounces.
Okay, I was about to be
Sorry.
like, $900 does not seem like a lot.
She
Okay,
had
I got you.
a gold coin, a $20 gold coin, but it was all gold.
Damn.
Yeah. But anywho, so they finally get into the guy who's in charge of the company now, and this guy's name is what? The guy with the blisters.
Yeah. Well, all right. I was gonna read this whole thing, but I'm not going to. It's Harry Strickland is the main dude.
Homeless Harry. There it is.
Homeless Harry Strickland. The thing I was gonna read was 2 Strongs, 3 Peaks, a Mud, a Mandrake, a Lothst, and a pair of coals. And I'm just like, there's a point later on in the next chapter where he does the thing again, where he just puts names out there that are so, I have to imagine that he just yells out in a crowd of people, throw me a name, and just people say random shit and he just fucking includes it. Like,
I laughed at this because the Strongs I know from House of the Dragon along with the Coles. So I was like, okay, 2 of those.
Yo. So he says, this must be your son. Does he know? Griff wondered. Oh, sweetie. No man could have asked for a worthier son, but the lad is not of my blood, and his name is not Griff. My lords, I give you Aegon Targaryen, firstborn son of Rhaegar, prince of Dragonstone by Princess Elia of Dorne. Soon, with your help, to be Aegon the Sixth of his name, king of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, and lord of the 7 kingdoms. Silence greeted his announcement. Someone cleared his throat. One of the Coles refilled his wine cup from the flagon. Gorys Edorin played with one of his corkscrew ringlets and murmured something in a tongue Griff did not know. Laswell Peake coughed. Mandrake and Lothston exchanged a glance.
This is so awkward.
Oh my god. This cracked me up so bad. How, like, he really thought there was going to be this collective gasp. Bless him. And he's like, why did they know this? And he's like, well, they needed a reason to stick around. They were very fucking stir crazy, and I had to tell them something.
Right. Meanwhile, I got job offers coming in left and right that I'm saying no to. I'm letting money, go out the window. I got to tell these people something.
And he's like, well, who offered? He says the Yunkishman. The envoy that they sent to Wu Volantis has already dispatched 3 free companies to Slaver's Bay. He wished us to be the 4th, and he offers twice what Mir was paying us, plus a slave for every man in the company, 10 for every officer, and 100 choice maidens, all for me.
Jesus Christ.
And he's like, wait, what? That's like thousands of people. Where are they going to find him? And he's like, Marine. And there's a lot of people looking for some shit to do in Marine. Yeah. So I don't know that they're wrong about thinking they can pull that off,
Yep. And depending on, timing is always like a thing, I'm not sure where we are because some time has passed with Daenerys and her 90 days, right? I don't know if her 90 days have passed.
That's true.
And if they have,
unclear what the timing is of all of this.
I don't know what decision she made at the end of that 90 days. And if she did decide to marry his daughter, or whatever his name is,
Zolorak,
did she agree to his compromise? And if so, maybe they can just come and get all these people.
And of course, Jon is like, well, don't worry about it. We've got enough for you to do. And he's like, do you?
Mhm.
Because she hasn't headed west, right? So I don't know why she's sticking around. Like, she sacked Marine, which I get, do that, but then she's hanging out, and I'm not really sure what that means and what that says about who she is,
Mhm.
which is a really good point that hadn't occurred to me, is that might make them question, like, what does she even actually want? You know, they
Right.
don't, it never even occurs to
It
them
occurred
that
to
she's like,
I was
I'm
about
trying
to
to
say.
keep things fucking stable,
Nope.
you know?
Never even crosses their mind.
Nope.
Is it fear? Is it madness? Is it laziness? But like, oh, she's trying to change things doesn't even register.
Nope.
Because I guess maybe it seems either improbable or impossible to accomplish, or like such a small concern next to something as grand as reclaiming the Iron Throne that they don't even think it would be important enough to get in her way to slow her roll, you know. Which granted to be is probably most accurate, because, you know, staying around in some eastern city to sacrifice your throne to free what, slaves? Who gives a fuck about them? You know?
So he says, the why of it does not matter. She's in Marine and we are here. We came to raise up a king and queen. But, you know, she doesn't seem that interested in that. And she's got a lot of people set against her. And, you know, she's got dragons and she's got Unsullied, I guess. But there's enough people now that I'm not really sure how much of a difference that's even going to make.
Mm-hmm.
And Tristan Rivers says, all the more reason we must reach her quickly. If she can't come to us, we have to go to her. And we get a whole, you know, back and forth here about how likely that is, whether or not they could get through, whether
People
they
are
have the
piping
ships,
up.
you know.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like this idea very clearly.
And it's going like this back and forth. And this homeless Harry Strickland, by the way, his description is just that he does not look like the type of man you think would be in charge of a sellsword company. He's got very tender toesies, for one.
Yes, he does indeed.
Griff says you sound like an old woman, or thinks that he sounds like an old woman when he's talking about how his feet hurt, and because he's soaking his feet during this fucking audience
because he's got blisters. And yeah, this, like, it's a recurring thing with Griff, thinking that people are weak or that they shouldn't be, like, even sharing the what's the word I want? Just discomfort, I guess. But overall, what we get is really that Harry Strickland is a networking guy. Yeah. But he is not an action guy.
Yeah.
And this is when Griff is like, hey, so I guess I may as well call him Aegon. Why don't we do a different thing? I came up completely independently with this idea that I think you're going to love. And he proposes the going to Dorne plan. And all of them are very interested.
They're into it.
Yeah. And Griff is taken by surprise here. Just, you know, it's almost a shame knowing what influence Tyrion had over Aegon already, that he has been taken out of the kid's life, because it was one conversation and he's out here making some moves already. And what could have happened if he had been allowed to, like, mentor this kid with his acumen, because we know that Tyrion is very clever and nobody ever listened to him because of who he is and how he looks. But if he got to be the voice behind somebody like Aegon, how, like, just effective he could potentially have been. And it's such a bummer that we see how well it works right away, but that's the only chance he got.
And the fact that Griff is able to sell it too. Young Griff, rather, Aegon was able to sell it. Also, they just mentioned briefly that they have him all dressed up in his fanciest of fancies. In like red and black to like really sell You make this, make him as impressive as possible, which I appreciated.
His fanciest of fancy fancies. I'm going to remember that.
I think I was looking for the word finery to be one of my F words, but I just didn't find it. So
fine.
I just went with fancy 3 times.
And Strickland at first is like, well, the risk is not what it was now that Tywin Lannister is dead. The 7 kingdoms will never be more ripe for conquest. Another boy king sits the Iron Throne, this one even younger than the last, and the rebels are thick upon the ground as autumn leaves. Even so, alone we cannot hope to... Griff had heard enough of the Captain General's cowardice. We will not be alone. Dorne will join us, must join us. Prince Aegon is Elia's son, as well as Rhaegar's.
Meanwhile, Dorne got their own set of plans.
They do. They sure do. And
which
it's
is
so
not
funny
Tyrion's
because,
fault.
like,
Tyrion can't be held responsible. There's no way for him to know this.
Yeah. And, like, the whole way that it's going with them as well, it's like the same question has been occurring to... At least we know that... he has the foresight that Aegon doesn't, to be like, I don't have anything to offer her. I don't know what she's going to say. Is she even going to want to, like, have anything to do with me? Where Aegon was just like, of course she's going to want it. Look at me. Look who I am.
Have you seen me? Have you heard about me?
Do you know who my father is? So let's see. If my aunt wants Marine, she's welcome to it. I'll claim the Iron Throne by myself. Move fast and strike hard. And he, says something earlier about how his claim is better. Again, that having been put in his head. And I really again, this wasn't done in the show.
None of this. Somebody
just turning up with a better claim. And her having to potentially cope hearing from across the sea, oh, you had an unexpected relative who's decided to, like, jump ahead of you to try and conquer. Like, what do you think she's gonna react? I think
that would have moved her ass.
She'd
have got her ass to Westeros then. It's not to derail because we gotta focus, but it is. I understand that the books are not finished and the show needed to finish, but they went off book so much earlier than they really needed to. They could have really done several more seasons with just what's in the books.
Oh, very much so. That was what was so puzzling to so many of us.
Yeah, it's a real missed opportunity because they could have just done all this shit, could have had this plot point, the plot point with Quentyn. And we could have got several more seasons. But of course, the way that shit, well, no, because if they had stayed with the book, we wouldn't have had that nonsense.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's baffling. The more I read, the more baffling it becomes.
I think they just got, those what's his faces, D&D got too hype about doing a different project and just stopped giving a shit about what it was they were currently working on because they were preoccupied
with a bunch of shit that never happened, as far as I can tell, because not nary one of those shows made it to air. Well, they dropped the ball so incredibly hard that I think folks lost confidence and were just like, never mind. Their names don't carry the same cachet that they used to. Sure, now they're a joke. I think okay, but anyway, yeah, because I was about to start a whole long thing about them. Nobody wants that.
I do, but okay, sure. So yeah, they all agree to this, and Griff says to the Half-Maester, go back and come get Lamore and Raleigh. We'll need Illyrio's chests as well, all the coin and the armor. Give Yandria and Nisilla our thanks. Their part is done. And he says they will not be forgotten when his grace comes into his kingdom. And I just really want to know what was promised to them because I feel like they will be forgotten, but maybe that's just me being mean.
I like too that, like, when Aegon decides to step up and, share his bold plan.
Mm-hmm.
All the dudes are just like, oh, this kid's got some stones on him, and they're all,
Yeah.
and then slowly but surely they all just kind of come down and like lay their swords down to him. Because that's all it takes, I guess, is somebody to come in and have like an air of, look, this is what we're going to do. This is why it's going to work. And, we're going to just fuck it. We're going to go to them. We're not going to sit around all this dilly-dally, especially when you're talking to an audience like this, who are like a bunch of men that are literally just about that action.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to play well.
I think also that it's such a new suggestion, and they have had time to sort of sit and stew over the fact that the plan they were originally going to do is not going to work super well. So I'm sort of wondering if it's just like, oh, here's a different option that none of us had considered. It sounds more possible, but also we have not been given the time to poke holes in it. So sure, but I don't know. There's certainly holes to be poked, but there are a lot fewer than going to Marine.
Yeah.
So,
and those holes will show themselves.
Ooh, that's what she said.
And meanwhile, Griff is like, this is a side of Aegon I've never seen before. Probably because you kept him hiding on the bottom of the boat this whole time. You never had an opportunity to see this side of him.
There's that. I thought you were going to say probably because you kept Tyrion from ever talking because you hated him. But
that's the other thing. Like the side, like there's two ways. The way he's acting and speaking boldly to everybody is like one way to look at it. But then the strategy and being like, I've never seen this strategic side of him before is also like a way for him to be viewing that. So I think it's like a little bit of both. Not the prudent course, but he was tired of prudence, sick of secrets, weary of waiting. This is Griff thinking. So, yeah. Little does he know he's on board with Tyrion's plan. He would absolutely hate that.
Do you think that, like, if he knew where this idea had come from, he would have just out of principle naysayed it?
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of think so, too.
I think that's the kind of man he is.
Yeah. He just is, like, petty. Petty is the word I want.
Yep.
There's something about him. I don't know. But he goes back to his tent here and takes his glove off. And it turns out our man's the one in the zombie movie who got bit but doesn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
this is
I'm fine.
This is all right. So if my understanding of the way grayscale works is it's really the infected part that has to touch somebody else. I'm guessing.
Yes. Because
the way Isilla reacted was sort of comical, like she was being overly cautious with Tyrion. But
going
yeah, making like the sign of the cross and shit.
Yeah.
But so he's not necessarily putting anybody in danger just yet. But I don't like it.
Same. It just does feel like the sort of thing. Are you going to be able to keep your gloves on all the time? Are you always going to be able to camouflage from other people that you have it? And are you always going to remember not to touch things with your bare hand and not infect like areas?
Yeah.
And there's just so much that could go wrong.
You're bringing a risk into a situation. He's looking at his infection, I guess to call it, and is saying that he probably has maybe a year, maybe 2. And all he wants to do really is get this done, and then he can go home and die and be buried where he should be buried.
Yeah.
With his good name intact, which is very important to him.
I guess.
Yeah. Not so concerned about your good name.
I just it's hard for me to care about anything that's going to happen after I'm dead.
Oh my God. I wish I could say that.
There's a vanity to it for me that I understand, but that just doesn't by then I feel like I'm going to, I don't know, maybe I won't, but I just feel like there's a big part of me that's just sort of like, that's supposed to be when I'm free.
It's supposed to be.
I don't want to, it's not fair to even have me worrying about. I don't like it. What are they going to do to me if I don't have it set up well? Tell me that. Who's going to come at me saying I didn't do my homework?
Well, then I guess, especially if you don't have children, right? Like if you have kids, that's a whole other thing, But if you don't, and it doesn't sound like he does, but I guess, in this world, it's so like your name is everything. Like we find out that in the company, like with the Coles and the Strongs and all those other names, a lot of those guys, that's not even their real names, or they're not connected to those real families. They can pick names.
Yeah.
So this, and I guess maybe that's why names are so important in a universe like this, where if you don't have a name, then like you're no one, to the point of even like, if you're a bastard, you don't even get the last name. You get like the bastard last name. It's hard for me to imagine a name meaning that much in this day and age.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's not like that it can still do its thing if you're of a certain echelon.
Sure.
But amongst everybody, the way it is in this world.
Right. But like pick a famous name, or a rich person's name. Like I, worked with a kid whose last name was Gates. That didn't mean anything to me. Because I know you're not fucking Bill Gates, kid.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
it's not just the name that does. But like in this world, the name is the thing.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Hilton. I met a Hilton. That is not what I would. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So that's the end of that chapter. And just something that we kind of jumped over a little bit, but also Jon Connington has some PTSD from the Battle of the Bells.
Yeah.
Were you going to say that you like that he has PTSD?
No, I was going to say, yeah, I meant like, I'm glad that you brought that up because I'd like to talk about that. I'm just trying to find it now.
I think it's kind of toward the beginning of things. Yeah.
It's been, so now we get a piece of time that like is not helpful for the current story, but it's been 17 years since the Battle of the Bells. And he feels a guilt that because he lost this battle, if he had won this battle, then Robert never kills Rhaegar on the Trident and none of this happens. And it says that, what does it say? Something like the sound of a bell still puts like
made his stomach go into knots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that I often think about, just like sound, because it's really surprising the things that our bodies decide to remember. And I know that I will be caught so off guard by trying to remember words. But for me, smells, that's supposed to be the one that's most linked to memory. But there can be sounds that I was with Owen at this restaurant and I was already thinking about my dad because it was a Colombian restaurant, and the guy was walking around whistling between his teeth, which was something that my father used to do. And it has a very particular sound to it when people do it that way. And I hadn't thought about how my dad did that since he died. I completely forgotten. And hearing it, I just suddenly started crying, and Owen was just like, dear. Oh my God, what's wrong? And I just had to be like, it sounded like him, So it is just really surprising, the stuff that will embed itself
that's
in your brain.
Though, that you got to hear that sound again
at a Colombian restaurant. Like, what are the odds of it? It was so weird.
Yeah, it's probably a common thing that they do.
Maybe. He had a big space between his teeth, his two front teeth. So that's why he later on in life got caps that like brought his teeth closer together, or veneers or something. And he still did it, but it wasn't quite the same. But yeah. So, all right, the Windblown. This This is really rough. The whole thing is like a fucked up carnival. You know what I'm saying though? Like, I just really, the vibe of it feels like, I'm not saying that any of this is real, but I'm saying that it feels as if the way that George R. R. Martin put it together was he went through a bunch of history books and found the weirdest shit that he could find in terms of like legends about certain armies and factions and stuff from every different country, and just decided to put them all into one company because it's so over the top. And it's so and cartoonish.
The Windblown is the name of the company?
Yeah.
Okay, so that explains that, because these motherfuckers are just from everywhere.
Yes, yes. So this is Quentyn's chapter, but he's going by Frog. He's been named because he hops to it so quickly whenever he's given an order.
Oh my God.
Which is, there's something about the fact that even though he was raised a prince, that he has no problem taking orders that I actually really admire. You know, there's so many people that would just be kind of like, oh, how dare you? And he's just like, nope, I'm going to do my job. Which, he is a dutiful lad, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And Frog, you know, his name, it turns out like pretty much everybody just picks names, and they will change them at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, and they keep their true names to themselves, which is very different than what we were just talking about in the Gold Company. These people are just like, nah, you don't need my name. Mind your business. Don't worry about who my people are.
Exactly.
And that, for me, is somehow more menacing.
And they are handled by somebody called the Tattered Prince, who is an old Pentoshi nobleman. And apparently the legend is the Magisters of Pentos had chosen him to be their new prince hours after beheading their old prince. And he was like, I'm good. And just got his sword and took off. And, you know, that's the story. Quentyn's sort of like, oh, I don't know about that, but maybe. And, you know, we had ended the last chapter with Garrus Drinkwater saying, I have an idea, but you're really not going to like it. And it turns out joining up with the Windblown is what he meant. The more Quentyn heard of Daenerys Targaryen, the more he feared their meeting. The Yunkai claimed she fed her dragons on human flesh and bathed in the blood of virgins to keep her skin smooth and supple. Beans laughed at that, but relished the tales of the Silver Queen's promiscuity. One of her captains comes of a line where the men have foot-long members, but even he's not big enough for her. She rode with the Dothraki and grew accustomed to being fucked by stallions, so now no man can fill her.
For fuck's sake.
Her Khal killed her brother to make her queen, then she killed her Khal to make herself Khaleesi. She practices blood sacrifice, lies as easily as she breathes, turns against her own on a whim. She's broken truces, tortured envoys. Her father was mad too. It runs in the blood. So
that it runs
starting
in
to kind of be like,
the rest of it kind of just rolls off his back, but that it runs in the blood, that sticks, because he's like, King Aerys had been kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody knew that.
And then we get this awful description of Astapor, which he says was as close to hell as any place that he had ever been.
Yeah.
This place sounds horrible.
So Astapor is the place that had the Butcher King, right?
Yeah.
And Dany went through there, freed them, left, and then it fell to the Butcher King, and he was just as terrible as his name would suggest. And that's Cleon, right?
Yes.
All right.
Look at you remembering names.
Girl, I'm trying.
That's good. That's good. I like it. So this... Is this the spot here? Nope, not yet. I absolutely am going to read you guys that list of names once it comes up, but we aren't there yet.
Mm-hmm.
The sellswords loved Green Guts, who bet as fearlessly as he fought, but with far less success. I want my armor, Frog. Did you scrub that blood off my mail? Aye, sir. And this dude apparently just has been through a lot of battles, so his armor is a wreck. But, you know, it's doing what it do. We find out Quentyn said to Garrus, I'd sooner pose as poor than evil. It took the Windblown less than an hour to strike their camp, and now we ride, the tattered prince proclaimed. And all of them are cheering, and the three of them just have to kind of, which just cracks me up every time I imagine people like really half-heartedly sort of, and he's trying to talk to Garrus out of the corner of his mouth, and he's like, well, we need to do it soon. And Garrus is like, yeah, we can't talk about that now. Can we make camp first? And please do not draw attention to us. And the hodgepodge nature of all of these different people is what sort of makes, it's almost like the camp's theme is that it's a bunch of different themes, because everybody's got their own little gimmick that is really funny. I'm sorry, but it is. Well, there were Yunkish lordlings scuttling everywhere like roaches. Half of them seemed to be named Gazdan, Grazdan, Mazdan, Gaznak. Telling one Giscari name from another was an art few of the Windblown had mastered, so they gave them mocking styles of their own devising. And then we have the yellow whale, who is called that because he is so fat that he cannot stand up and he can't hold his piss. And so he just reeks of it really bad.
Jesus.
But
he's the richest man in Yunkai, so.
Yes. So, you know, we'll deal with it. And he collects freaks. Yeah. In quotes.
Grotesque, they call them.
Yeah.
A boy with the legs and hooves of a goat, a bearded woman, a two-headed monster, a hermaphrodite, and a giant?
Yeah, at one point. The giant's dead now, but he did have one.
He used to like to watch the giant fuck the slave girls.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
There was Girl General, who rode about on a white horse with a red mane and commanded 100 strapping slave soldiers that she had bred and trained herself. All of them young, lean, rippling with muscle, naked but for breech clouts, yellow cloaks, and long bronze shields with erotic inlays. Their mistress could not have been more than 16 and fancied herself Yunkai's own Daenerys Targaryen.
Wow.
She sounds dope.
A little bit.
You know, like, kind of interesting.
Bred and trained. That bred, what do they mean by that? She didn't have all those kids, so she just saw to, like, who fucked who and then took the babies?
I mean, she's only 16, so I don't even know if she could have.
Right?
I don't know. I don't know.
But
what does bred mean? Yeah, good question.
Yeah. I mean, the way they make it sound like you would raise puppies, you know?
Yeah.
So you just see that they're mated, and then you take them, and then you raise them. But she does sound a little rad, and I wouldn't have minded seeing her on TV.
And then we have the little pigeon who's super short, but all of his soldiers are very, very tall. And they have stilts built into their armor. This is the weirdest thing. Pink enameled scales covered their torsos. On their heads were perched elongated helms complete with pointed steel beaks and crests of bobbing pink feathers. You mentioned flamingos. Yeah. Now we're really getting there. The little pigeon breeds them. Another breeds. What does this mean? He buys tall slaves from all over the world, mates the men to the women, and keeps their tallest offspring for the herons. That's what they call themselves. I got news for you, kiddos. Those are flamingos. And
One
Garrus
day he
is
hopes
just
to
like,
be able to dispense with the stilts.
like he's just trying to breed giants,
Oh
just
my
making it
God,
happen.
That's amazing.
And Garrus Drinkwater is like, if they came at me in battle, I probably would die because I was laughing so hard. That's insane. What? Are you serious? I just keep imagining basically like Vegas showgirls on stilts,
Oh my God.
you know, with those like ostrich feather headdresses.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how effective fighting when you are that high up is. Like, aren't you a great target? And
I would just go for your legs, right?
Right? Like,
especially if they're stilts, you just axe right through them joints.
Yeah.
Snap them right off.
They are like, they're metal because they're made with the armor, but nevertheless, like their swords can go through armor sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
If not, it'll at least throw you off balance. And you know, there's archers. You stand 10 feet above everybody else.
You're
like
an easy target.
I just don't really get the advantage here. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the scales are like their protective shield from, and they have helms, and then they're wearing armor with scales on it. So I don't know. But,
I guess.
But somebody is really unimpressed because they're like, you know, in real life, herons are fucking craven. So I don't know why you style your soldiers after that.
So here it is. Here it is. This is the bit. There were more, near as mad or worse. Lord Wobblecheeks, the Drunken Conqueror, the Beastmaster, Pudding Face, the Rabbit, the Charioteer, the Perfumed Hero. I'm so sorry, but those were picked at random. And somebody said something that's probably trademarked and he put it in anyway. Beastmaster. Some had 20 soldiers, some 200 or 2,000, all slaves they had trained and equipped themselves. Everyone was wealthy, everyone was arrogant, and everyone was a captain and commander answerable to no one but Yurkhaz Zoyunzak, disdainful of mere sellswords and prone to squabbles over precedents that were as endless as they were incomprehensible.
Mm.
It just sounds like a disaster.
It really does.
Don't know.
I don't know how they get anything done, but I guess we'll see.
Man, oh man. And they talk about the Stormcrows and the Second Sons and the fact that they went over to Daenerys, and Beans is like, yeah, they don't get why they went over, but I mean, it seems like his implication is just they're a disorganized mess, and she is offering somebody stable with like distinct plans and money. Mm-hmm. So what is not to like about that? But Beans seems to think that they signed their own death warrant by siding with her.
Yeah. They're talking about how bad it was in Astapor again, and someone says, do you want to face real Unsullied with this lot by your side? And the guy is like, we fought Unsullied. And he's like, nah, dude. Nah.
Yeah. We fought some kids that had been castrated and given hats. That is not the same thing. And Dick Straw says something about we'll have a real fight soon. And Quentyn is just like, a real fight. And you really do get the sense that he's judging himself hard for the fact that that was super terrifying to him, and all of them don't see it as anything.
Yeah. He's just like, that shit seemed pretty real to me. What are y'all talking about? And someone says that wasn't a battle. That was just butchery. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Quentyn is just like, that shit felt like a battle, though. I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, he gets, like, we get a little flashback, and he's summoned to put his armor on because the Butcher King is coming, and they're like, he's like, he's dead. And the other dude's like, I mean, maybe they lied, or maybe this is a different Butcher. I don't know. Get up and get your fucking armor on. 300 yards away, Astapor's new Unsullied had been pouring through their gates. 3 Dornishmen spilled from the tent together to join the fighters. Quentyn had trained with spear and sword and shield once he was old enough to walk, but that meant nothing now. The big man pointed out the Butcher King to him, sitting stiff and tall upon an armored horse in a suit of copper scale that flashed brilliantly in the sun. And eventually somebody cuts through that, and it turns out he did. And he was just, his corpse filled with maggots was put in the armor and just loaded onto this horse to give them like morale, which is so sad. Like, that is just, it's such a sad thing to have to do to begin with. And can you imagine being filled with strength because you see your leader and then they cut into them and there had been dead? Like, how completely demoralizing that would be when you realize that you've been like trotted out into the midst of this by a corpse. Oh my God. This is devastating. The new Unsullied threw down their spears and shields and ran, only to find the gates shut behind them.
Yeah.
This is hideous.
Yeah, this is, you're right. It was just a fucking slaughter.
Yep. And at one point, Quentyn is like, these kids are so young, but he killed them anyway. Which...
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah.
What are you supposed to do, I guess? You know, like... Ugh. I just hate this whole story. It's so sad. Astapor is just a hellhole. Somebody needs to just burn it.
Yeah, and all right.
What?
Like I know Daenerys is on to, like, you know, she's in Marine now at this point. At least that's where she was when we left her. I don't know if she knows the Butcher King is dead. I don't know if she would go back there now.
I think she was given news that he was, but I might be misremembering that.
Like, you know what? I thought she was given news as well, but I couldn't remember for sure. Because, what's his name? Dario, I think, tells her.
Does he? Okay.
I know he gives her some news about where did she know? She sent him someplace else.
Yeah, I thought it was
yeah, he was something with a Y.
Mo Resnack that gave her that, but I may be misremembering that. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. But I part of me wants her to be like, she needs to go back and get that city in order, but she's got so much on her plate, and I've already said she needs to be heading back to Westeros, so I can't now say she should be going back to Astapor. She cannot be everywhere, which is why she's stuck right now as it is, because she can't be everywhere.
And the thing that's kind of beginning to really get to Quentyn here is the closer they get, the more he's thinking about, we are going to have to ditch all these guys, and we've traveled with them. We like took vows with them. And the whole plan was to use them to get across to her, but I feel like a real shit doing this.
Yeah, they gotta fucking desert, and how are we going to do this? And there's concern that who are they talking about? That one of them is going to have a really difficult time leaving because the type of person they are. I forget who Quentyn is talking to, but there's somebody in their party, and they're
trying to find the spot here.
You know how he is. It's Garrus talking to Quentyn.
Here it is. Oh, well, the big man's made too many friends. He knows the plan was always to steal off and make our way to Daenerys, but he's not going to feel good about abandoning men he's fought with.
Yeah.
If we wait too long, it's going to feel as if we're deserting them on the eve of battle. He will never do that. Yeah. You know him as well as I do.
That's it. That's the part. And of course that ends up not even being a fucking problem because...
It's so amazing. I love this so much.
They're all freaking out about how they're going to, you know, initiate this part of the plan. Like when they were talking earlier and the guy was like, this is not the time. We got to talk about this later. But this is the whole thing. Like, we got to do it. We got to do it soon. How are we going to make the play? And then the gentleman in charge, who is the Tattered Prince, basically calls a meeting.
Mm-hmm. This guy Hugh Hungerford comes to get them, and I don't know why this made me laugh, but Hungerford had been company paymaster for a time until the tattered prince had caught him stealing and removed 3 of his fingers. Now he was just a sergeant.
Yeah.
There was something about, like, you're stealing, I'm taking your fingers, and I'm demoting you, but I would expect him to be killed. So I feel like he got away pretty well on that.
I said the same thing. I was like, oh, he still got a job. And his head.
So yeah, they go into this meeting, and there's this woman, Pretty Maris, that keeps being mentioned, who's like apparently really terrifying. And at one point they're thinking about what happens if they betray them and get caught and how they would be given to her. And evidently that's a real bad scene.
Yeah. Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear a lot more about her, but maybe later.
Orders have come down from Yorkaz. What Astapori still survive have come creeping from their hidey holes. There's nothing left in Astapor but corpses, so they're pouring out into the countryside. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all starved and sick. The Yunkai don't want them near their yellow city. We've been commanded to hunt them down and turn them. Drive back to Astapor or north to Marine. If the Dragon Queen wants to take them in, she's welcome to them. Half of them have the bloody flux, and even the healthy ones are mouths to feed. Excuse me. I'm sending half our strength into the hills, 50 patrols, 20 riders each. And Bloodbeard's got the same orders, so the cats will be in the field as well. A look passed between the men, and a few muttered under their breath. Though the Windblown and the Company of the Cat were both under contract to Yunkai, a year ago they had been on opposite sides, and bad blood still lingered. And Dijkstra is like, what's the deal? Everybody you brought here is from the 7 kingdoms, and you've never bothered separating us out according to birthplace before. So what's happening here? And he's like, okay, so yeah, what we're going to have you do is you're going to go into the hills and then like make a big U-turn and go around to Marine. And we want you to turn your cloaks and join in with them. And Quentyn Martell is like almost ready to laugh out loud. He's just like, are you serious? And they're like, do you really think she'll take us? And he says, yeah, I do. But if she does, what then? Are we spies? Assassins? Envoys? Are you thinking of changing sides? Kago scowled. That's for the prince to decide, Hungerford. Your part is to do as you are told. Always. Hungerford raised his 2-fingered hand. He's got some Davos energy over here.
He really does. Do that to you.
And there's somebody who's putting it as if like he's just trying to have his fingers in all the pies so that no matter who wins, he'll come out on top. I don't know if that's the plan or what. But the Tattered Prince is putting Pretty Maris in command. And it's like, she's the one who's in on it and knows what I'm thinking with doing this. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping the fact that she's a woman will make Daenerys more comfortable with her and dealing with her. And Quentyn glanced back to Pretty Maris. When her cold, dead eyes met his, he felt a shiver. I do not like this. Yikes.
When I was reading about this plan here and I was remembering that Dario said he brought some traders with him, I was like, is that them? But I can't remember. Like, he says he brought 3, right?
That sounds right. It was a much smaller group than this, I think.
And I'm trying to see because she's all like, "Are you sure you can trust them?" and da 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 da.
Right.
And I was just looking for it, but of course, I can't find it exactly when he talks about bringing people back. All right, here it is. They might be spying for Yunkai. How many men did you lose fighting? None. He says, but I. So we came out 3 ahead. And then she's like, they might be spying for Yunkai. They're too stupid to be spies. 1 is bald. 2 have braids. 1 dyes his beard 4 different colors. That doesn't sound like our guys.
No, it does not.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's not our guys. All right. Just wanted to double check that. My brain was just like, what?
So this dude, Dick Straw, is like, I don't think she's going to trust us. And he's like, you're Westerosi. You speak her language. You worship the gods as she does. And you guys have all like got things to fucking complain about. I've whipped you. Hugh got his fingers chopped off. And he says, Maris was raped half round the company, not this company. True, but we need not mention that. Which I was like, no wonder she's got fucking dead eyes.
Right?
Will of the Woods, well, you're just filth. And I was just like, Christ.
Jesus. Fuck.
Sir Orson blames me for dispatching his brother to the Sorrows, and Sir Lucifer is still seething about that slave girl Cago took from him. He could have given her back when he'd had her, Lucifer long complained. He had no cause to kill her. She was ugly, said Cago. That's cause enough.
Jesus Christ.
Just like, oh my God. Like, I can't, it's an actual like, I shouldn't be laughing, but I can't see it as an actual person or I'll cry. So
Right.
Has to be a joke. Let it be a joke.
Tattered Prince went on as if no one had spoken. That I really enjoyed.
Weber, you nurse claims to lost land in Westeros. Lannister, I killed that boy you were so fond of. You Dornish 3, you think we lied to you. The plunder from Astapor was much less than you were promised, and I took the lion's share of it. The last part's true, Sir Orson said. The best ruses always have some seed of truth. Every one of you has ample reason for wanting to abandon me, and Daenerys knows that sellswords are a fickle lot. When should we leave? At once. Be wary of the cats and any long lances you may encounter, because basically, I know that you were told to defect. They do not. So they're just going to see you as actually defecting, and they're not going to look kindly on that. So watch your backs.
Oh, now the long lances, Dario definitely mentioned them.
Did he? Okay.
He did. Fuck.
Dun, dun, dun.
Where is it? He says, she asked him, tell me about your journey. He says, the Yunkai sent some hired swords to close the Khazai Pass, the long lances they named themselves. But we descended on them in the night and sent a few to hell.
Dun, dun, dun.
So I don't know. Maybe this is tying together. Not in the way I first thought as far as like who defected, but All right. Maybe this is starting to dovetail. I don't know. There's still a fucking ton of book left.
True. So yeah, like, do you see what we were like really interested in you getting to these last two books for? Like, just the amount of stuff that just got completely abandoned in terms of storytelling. It's just really surprising.
So much. This is and again, like at the very opening of the episode, when there's so much that was not included in this show. Like, yeah. I think I thought, all right, so I knew that the show went off book, right? But I expected a lot more of what we got in those last, 2 seasons, maybe 3.
Mm-hmm.
It was 8 seasons of the show. They were off book by what? Like 5?
There were 8 seasons? Oh yeah, that's right. Because the final, wasn't the last 2 seasons short?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so weird.
So I thought that there would be a lot more of what we were starting to get at the end of the show in the books, like hints of it, But that is nothing compared to the shit that just was not mentioned at all in the show, that just never became a thing. And there's so many characters that I don't know that I'm meeting, so many different plots that are happening. It's a lot. It's weird too, because as I come into this, I already feel like I know the story. Mm-hmm. And I do, but I also don't. Both things are true at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very strange place to to find myself in. But it is, I mean, it's, a lot of this is very interesting, and we talked already in the other episode. I told you guys what I'm into and what I'm not into, so I don't have to like rehash all that. But the stuff that's good is really, really very good.
Mm-hmm. And it just opens up a lot of doors that, you know, we have all sort of talked a lot about how the way that the show ends up is not out of the question for how the books end up, but the journey to getting
How
there.
do we get there?
Yeah, it seems like it's going to make a lot more sense.
Like if I'm Daenerys Targaryen and I am stuck in Meereen, and then all of these different people eventually make their way to me, and they are all telling me that they're on my side, but then they turn out to betray me one after the other, I'm probably going to get a little cranky. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to get a little mean. I'm going to get a little short-tempered. I might even be driven mad by the constant betrayal, you know, of every person who I think is in my corner. And then next thing you know, I might be really burning King Landing to the ground. And it might make sense after being lied to over and over, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But since we didn't get any of that on the show, it just seemed like, bitch, what? What are you doing? What are you doing? You know?
And they had to make like everybody around her fools too, you know, like the end of the series, we see like Tyrion and Varys straight up giving like
bad advice,
and her like forgetting things like, oh, she forgot about the Iron Fleet, like,
yeah.
I will never forgive them for that one. That one is just wow.
So, but yeah, like there was so much other shit going on in this universe that wasn't on screen that was driving our characters, you know, that sort of would explain, like, would imagine book Tyrion, and I don't know how much of it we'll actually get, because again, this is the last book and I don't really know where it ends. I don't know if Tyrion ever fucking makes it to Daenerys in this book. I don't know. But I would imagine that if he does, and he's book Tyrion, when he gets to her, he's not giving her that bullshit advice that I saw Tyrion give her on the show. Because there's no need to do it, because the other stuff is there. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
So, but see, I get really nervous because I don't know where this ends. I don't know when this book stops, where it stops. So I don't know how much I'm going to get and what I'm not going to get. Because eventually I'm going to get to the last page of the book, and that's going to be it. And okay, I have no idea where we'll be. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's so strange. Like, if I knew this book ends with Daenerys still in place in Meereen, or this book ends with her traveling west, but we just don't get there, you know, I would have something to work with, but I got nothing. I got nothing to work with.
Yeah, well,
yeah. I can't believe I never got spoiled on where the book ends in all my like very careless.
There have been like many posts that were, I know, posted by people in your feed, and I have been certain you would stumble across or accidentally read one. I'm shocked that hasn't happened.
Yep.
Wild. Yep. Truly wild.
And I just, you know, and again, the way my brain works is I know that when the show ended, everybody started just dumping all the shit from the books that they wanted to see. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't they do that? You know, and it was so much information that a lot of it is just like lost, you know, and you know, some of it may get triggered when I get to certain parts. I might go, oh, I remember so-and-so talking about that, but that is few and far between. Yeah.
Yeah. I am really like, this next part of the book is, There is some stuff that I think you're going to be super frustrated by, and I can't decide if it's going to be great or terrible.
For you or for me?
Either. Like, there's one particular thing that is close to my heart, as like, I know it makes some people crazy that they hate it and they're just like, what? And I think is hilarious. And like, it's almost like he's trolling us a little bit. And that I'm really excited for you to get to. And I genuinely don't know if you will be like, this fucking guy, or if you're going to be like, I'm not reading anymore. Fuck him. You know, like it could go either way. So that's the stuff that I'm excited over. Is just, will she quit, or will it endear her to things even more? You know?
That
anyway.
is of concern. Yikes.
So, you guys, you know what time it is? Hey, it's time to say hi to new patrons. So this week we have Charles Massa. Was that way louder than it was a second ago?
Yes, it was.
Why was that so much lauder? I didn't do anything. Oh my God, you guys, was that louder for you? Mm-hmm. Who can tell? Emmy! Lauren Jones Wagner! And Lucas Wissereth! Thank you all so much for becoming patrons.
Hey,
I appreciate you. Sorry about the inconsistent volume on that air horn there. I'm really curious what's going on there. Is everything louder?
No, just the air horn's going to do what it do.
The cheering seems about the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened there.
You can't control an air horn, ma'am.
It's been controlled.
You thought.
It cast off its shackles. It's horny shackles. All right, guys. Thank you all again so much for listening. We really appreciate you. Hope y'all are enjoying the coverage. If you're interested in knowing what I'm laughing about, although many of you probably know what I'm talking about already, come on into the Discord. I post the link in the show notes so you can come and join. It is not patrons only, so you can come join us whether you are a paying supporter or not. And if you'd like to become a paying supporter and get access to other stuff, go to patreon.com/unspoiled and sign up there. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.